Hey everybody, we're really excited to introduce you to Angela Moryan. Angela, thank you for being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me, guys.
Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, where to begin? We don't have enough time, I think, to tell me about myself. No, I'm kidding. I am originally from Atlanta. It's kind of a long story of my background. My parents are from the New York City area, but I was born in Atlanta. Moved up to Virginia Beach, grew up there, moved back to Atlanta. I've bebopped around and finally have been in Indy for about 2 years, year and a half, 2 years. My dad was in the military, retired Army, so we moved around a little bit. But my parents still live in Atlanta. I went to school in Georgia, so I'm a Southern girl, but I got some Yankee blood, and I'm living in the Midwest. So
she's got it all.
Yeah,
she's got it all.
Check, check, check.
Yeah. I saw that you said you lived in like 5 different states. Where did y'all go
So
to?
I've lived in Georgia. We moved to Virginia. Moved back to Georgia. That's 2. When I graduated college, I moved to Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. Then I moved to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and then I moved here. What year was it? 2017. I lived in 3 states in that one calendar year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of moving.
Yeah.
Which
and
one?
the taxes were fun to file for my dad because, he did them for me.
There you go.
Yeah.
He's like, oh gosh.
He had no choice.
Yeah. Which is your favorite to live in?
Oh, it's so tough. I also kind of claim New York as state number 6. Like I never actually lived there, but my family's from there and I know the area very well. They're also different. And I also have lived in multiple like cities in Georgia. So I loved Chattanooga. I loved everything about Chattanooga. It's small, but it's like has this cool vibe. It's kind of like a Denver or a Seattle, but smaller. And the hiking is great. The scenery is great. But I also always loved Virginia Beach because I love the beach.
Yeah.
So it's like when you ask you mountains or beach, I don't have a good answer for that because I love them both equally.
They're both great.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite place I've ever lived was Savannah, Georgia.
Oh,
I
love
love Savannah.
Savannah.
I was there for a summer for my internship, and that was great.
Fun.
Yeah.
What internship was it?
I worked at the CBS affiliate there for the summer, so I did everything. Like I wanted to be a sports intern, obviously, but they had filled the sports spot. So they were like, well, you can come and be a news intern. And I was like, okay. Before I got down there, they called me and said, hey, our sports intern backed out if you want to do sports and news. And I was like, sure. So I was working 5 days, way over 40 hours a week for $0 money.
Oh my
$0. But it was fun. I would do like 2 days in sports, a day with a news reporter, a day producing, a day doing digital. It was a very well-rounded educational experience that got me prepared for being in news, and it helped me get my first on-air job because that first on-air job was half news and half sports. So I was able to say, like, I have the training to do the news side too. So that was cool.
That is cool. Will you just kind of go into like all your experience like through school, like where you interned, all the things, and then like after? Because I'm very curious about you getting into sports in Myrtle Beach. Like I mean that called me right away. I was like,
Myrtle. So we'll start at school. I went to Georgia College and State University, which is a Division II school in the middle of Georgia. I always say if you look at a map of Georgia and you're like guessing where the dead center of the state is, that's where my school is. And it's a small school. It's like a medium small school. But we didn't have football. Basketball was the main thing, but most everybody just went up to Athens, which was an hour away, to go to see Georgia, everything. So that was a little bit difficult in that, like, I couldn't get the experience of covering these teams, but I didn't know any better at the time. So while I was in school, the good thing about it being a smaller school was I was able to do everything and do it at a like high level of leadership within the organization. So like my junior year, one of the semesters my junior year, I was the sports editor at the newspaper. I had a radio show. I was a sports anchor at our little TV station, and I also worked a decent amount of hours in the athletic department doing like PR work for the athletic department. So I graduated early, a semester early, I didn't have anything lined up yet. And my boss at the athletic department, he had given me like the full-time job. But as a student, you can't like make full-time job money. Right. You have to make like a student stipend or whatever. So he was like, you can stay on through the spring semester, stay on as long as you need until you get a full-time job. So I didn't get a full-time job. I took a part-time job in Myrtle Beach. So I moved to Myrtle Beach in like April. Didn't know anybody there, no connections there. Literally moved to be a part-time production assistant at the NBC affiliate there.
Wow.
I was making above minimum wage, but I was working 30 hours a week, no like benefits, no nothing, and I had to work at Barnes & Noble at the same time. So for a long time, I was working the morning shift, which for people who don't know, morning shift in TV is usually 2, 3, 4 in the morning until noon. So I think my shift was 3 or 4 a.m. I had to be there, and I worked till noon. And then sometimes I would go home and then go to Barnes & Noble and work my Barnes & Noble job.
Oh my
God. I told my manager at Barnes & Noble, I was like, listen, I work at this TV station. That's my priority. I do mornings, so I really can't close. And he would still schedule me to close. So I would close. I'd get home at like 11, and I would have to be at the station at 4.
Oh, my God.
So I don't really know how I did it looking back, but, you know, I loved working at Barnes & Noble. It's a great spot. But I was only there. I only did that for like 6-7 months. Okay. And then I was able to get my first on-air job, which was at the CBS station in Chattanooga. I was there for a long time. I did multiple contracts there. Usually a contract is 2 years, maybe 3. I stayed on for almost 5 years. The pandemic kind of slowed my career ascension down. But I did love Chattanooga. We covered a lot of great stuff. They care so much about the Tennessee Vols, everything. Tennessee Vols, everything, over the Titans. But the great thing about Chattanooga is it's right on the border of Georgia and Tennessee. So we would cover all of the Georgia teams, too. So we covered the Falcons, the Braves, the Georgia Bulldogs, all of the North Georgia stuff. Jahmyr Gibbs, who's with Detroit now. I covered him in high school. Great story about Jahmyr. He's very quiet. And anytime I'd interview him, he would be very short answers. And his coach, knowing what this guy is going to become, I mean, he was a phenomenal athlete in high school. His coach would make him answer every question to him and to media in 20 words at least. What? And he would catch Jahmyr with his hand by his side, counting on his fingers as he was answering his coach's questions. So, like, even when I would interview him, sometimes you would see him, like, counting how many words.
That's crazy.
And I'm like, yeah, now you're one of the top, not prospects, one of the top running backs in the league, as we all knew he would be. I also covered Lad McConkey, who was with Georgia, won a couple national championships with Georgia. He's in town for the Combine this week. But I was like the only media that covered him, really. He went to this really, really tiny school in North Georgia. Nobody ever went down there. They've produced a lot of SEC talent, really, which is kind of cool. But Lad's definitely the most successful one. But his story is amazing, too. Love him and his family. They're great. I digress. It's
all good.
I was in Chattanooga for forever. It felt like forever. My goal was I really want to be in a city that has an NFL team. Football's my thing. I really wanted to do football. It was a very discouraging process, a lot of applications that went unanswered or rejections or whatever. What for one reason or another, jobs that I thought were in the bag because I knew the people, because I was in the state already, some yada, yada, yada didn't get. Just out of the blue, saw this job posting for Wish in Indy, and I was like, okay, the Colts, I'm going to apply. I applied. I sent the sports director an email. The next day he called me, and he was like, okay, I want to set up an interview for you tomorrow. So the second day I did an interview with him and our now executive producer and our news director, and they flew me up, which that was a whole story in itself. Wow. My flights kept getting canceled. We kept having to push it back. It was a whole situation. Finally made it. I had to drive to Atlanta. and fly up from Atlanta because the flights were getting canceled so much from Chattanooga. So I had to fly from Atlanta. I literally came up and came back down the same day. And the next day I was in Atlanta covering Freddie Freeman's return to Atlanta, and they had offered me a job. So I'm dealing with Freddie Freeman crying in front of me while I'm trying to decide if I'm going to take this job. Took the job. They wanted me here in 2 weeks. I was like, that's not going to work. I'm going to need a little bit more time than that. But came up here, and it's been a whirlwind ever since. Sorry, that was a really long-winded answer to your question.
Perfect. No, that's perfect.
But yeah, it's been a fun journey. I think I've been in the business now 7 years, coming up on 7 years. It feels longer, but it also feels shorter than that. Had a lot of great experiences, a lot of which have come here in Indy. So it was kind of a shot in the dark. Don't know anybody in the Midwest. Don't have family in the Midwest. Never been to the Midwest, really. And here I am. Now, somebody called me a Hoosier yesterday, so
you're official.
I'm official.
This is an official Hoosier.
I'm a Hoosier now. So.
How is it moving to places when you didn't know anybody?
It's tough. I think the adrenaline and maybe the pig-headedness and stubbornness of me trying to build this career, that was my focus. It wasn't so much of I don't know anybody. It's more of like, okay, I'll meet people there. Mm-hmm. I didn't know anybody in Chattanooga either, but that was a lot closer to home. I was 2 hours from home, so
yeah, that's nice.
But yeah, I think a big thing was in college, I studied abroad in Italy for the whole summer by myself. Nobody from my school went with me. I was literally like dropped into Italy and said, go see you in 2 months. And that was actually very difficult for me because I love traveling, but I learned I'd rather travel with people I know. And I made great friends, and it was totally worth it. But the first few weeks were hard. There was a lot of homesickness. But I think that drastic ripping the Band-Aid off helped prepare me for the moves that I've made in my career. And also, moving as a kid helped too. Like, the fact that my grandparents were 18 hours away from me most of my life, like, I'm used to not having that close family close by. So I think that helped too.
Yeah, because moving... Like working in sports, you travel around a lot, or with new job experiences, you could move. So, say, do you have advice on how to handle that? Because there's there's just so many chances you can move away.
Yeah, and one thing that I tell aspiring sports journalists like you guys, you're gonna have to move to somewhere that you know nothing about. You're gonna have to move to West Texas or Montana or Idaho. You're gonna have to cover random minor league teams, and it'll be fine. It'll be fun. It's just like a part of the experience. Advice, we always as a collective of 20-something TV journalists, we're always kind of like in this together. We're all not from here. We're all the same age. That really helped because you build that friendship with those people. It's kind of like an extension of college. So that helps. And finding, for me, finding a church everywhere I went really helped too. And it takes me a while to, it took me a while to get involved in those churches. But once I found, that kind of home base that was outside of my office building, it kind of helps too. But I've been blessed to work with amazing people, whether in my station or outside of my station, and my best friends are people I've worked with who've moved on to other things like I have. And so that I think helps the most is just you're kind of stuck in this together, so that makes the move a little easier. Yeah
For you coming to Indiana, and like you said, you love who you work with now, what is it like covering Indiana sports at the Midwest, especially we're big in basketball. We just had the All-Star. IU Purdue, all the things. What's that been like?
It's been amazing. There's been so much that's happened in the, I don't know how many months, 18, 19 months I've been here. It's been incredible. I thought I was covering cool stuff in Tennessee, and I was, but this is no other. Indy is the fact that last year we had IU, whether they're good or bad in basketball, is always a talking point and a preeminent basketball program in the history of the sport. And now you have Purdue, with a presumably 2-time National Player of the Year in Zach Edey, #1 seed last year, could be a #1 seed this year. Like, there's the fact that we get to cover these big sports is great. It's not just the Colts, it's not just the Pacers. And the Pacers even doing well, too. It's been fun. But the NFL Combine, the All-Star Game. I was here for the national championship, Georgia-Alabama national championship, before I had the job here. So it's been a lot of fun. And the Indy 500 is a sight to be had, too.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
That's really fun to cover.
Neither have I.
We've never been, actually, so.
You have to get that.
Yeah,
that's
we
a
have
bucket
to
list
going
thing.
this year.
Yeah, we can't be in sports and not go to the Indy
Yes.
500.
Even if you don't go to the race, there's so much that leads up to the race that's fun. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Definitely.
So with all your experience, you kind of mentioned like Super Bowl, national championship, all that. What's like just that been like? What's your experience been like? I know you also said like the Braves World Series and just like all those different events to cover.
It's a lot. The big events are a lot. It's a lot easier now here in Indy because we have the resources to provide support. So I usually don't have to shoot my own stuff. I have a photographer. I have support back at the station that they'll do things for me. I can focus on my craft. Before, it was me and my little red wagon against the world. Like, literally, when I was here for the national championship, my sports director in Chattanooga said, "I can see you in ESPN's shot right now." I said, "How do you know that's me?" He goes, "Well, you were dancing and I saw the red wagon." And I was like, "That's me."
You're like, yep.
Yeah.
That's me.
Caught me.
Yeah, so it's a lot of hard work and exhausting, especially when you're by yourself, covering those big things. You kind of have to pick and choose what you're going to do. And if you try to do everything, you can't. Even if you have the crew, you can't do everything yourself with how big these events can get. But they're awesome. You see tons of people. Like, I met Rachel Nichols at the All-Star weekend. Like, bunch of big names around. So it's fun to meet them and see them and
that's
connect
really
with them.
cool.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite person that you've interviewed or spoken to?
Ooh, that's tough.
There's so many. She's like, oh, there's so many.
There are so many. I love Tyrese Halliburton. I love him. I love him.
What a guy.
Such a genuine, nice guy. Always receptive to questions. Just genuinely a happy soul, and I love that. And wants to be here, which I love. So I love talking to Ty. Who else have I enjoyed talking to? Gardner Minshew was fun. He always called me man. It was hilarious. I'd ask him a question. He'd be like, "Yeah, man, we just got to be better. Consistency, we got to clean it up, whatever." It was always man. I was like, yeah, man, yeah. But Zaire Franklin is fun to talk to, too, the Colts linebacker. But literally everyone who I've interviewed has been great. They're very kind and generous with their time usually. So I've had good experiences with everyone here and in Chattanooga.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is.
That's so cool.
Really awesome.
Probably the coolest person I've ever interviewed was Terrell Owens. He went to Chattanooga, and I've interviewed him so many times. Funny, I'm going to tell this. This is an embarrassing story. I'm going to tell this story. We were at Chattanooga, made it to March Madness my last year there. It was in Pittsburgh. And Tio was there. And Tio and I know each other. He knows who I am. Right. Obviously, I know who he is. He's sitting behind me. I'm on press row. He's sitting behind me with the AD of Chattanooga, who I'm close with. And anyways, so he's around, whatever. I'm passing him in the hallway I think either I was getting off the elevator, he was getting on, or vice versa. I pass him, and the game was over, and I was like, "Bye, Tio. See you at home." And I walked past, and I was like, that was not the right thing to say. Tio, see you at home. I meant Chattanooga, and the funny thing is that's the last time I saw him, because I moved.
Did not see him at home.
Did not see him at home. But
that's so
I was
funny.
like, as soon as he was like, yeah, and then I like rocked past, and I was like, oh my God, what did I just say? What did I just say?
That's funny.
But yeah, so he's a really nice guy too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, we haven't talked about this yet, but it's a big part of you and your broadcasting, and that's your Emmy Award. So
I should have brought it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's
I should
okay.
have brought it.
Taya's drawing on the board. We'll
Yes.
have to do.
Right there.
But just tell us about, like, when you won that, what that felt like, just kind of what you did to get it, what you covered, anything about it you want to talk about.
My Emmy, my pride and joy. Her name is Emmy because she's the first. Hopefully not the last. No, but I've always wanted to win an Emmy. I didn't really play sports growing up. And this is probably a character flaw in me, but I love trophies. If there's an award, I want to win it. I'm competitive. I want the trophy. I want the gold. I want the certificate. I want it. So I've always wanted to win an Emmy because it's kind of like the preeminent thing in TV news. In Chattanooga, we didn't submit for them for a bunch of reasons that were valid. I probably wouldn't have won there anyways, but it was still that burning desire that I wanted to win. My boss here, AC, was like, you'll win one, you'll get one. Like, while you're here, you'll get one for sure. We put a lot of effort into our Emmy submissions. It's a priority for all of us. And we ended up submitting our Colts pregame show from the Tennessee away game last season, so 2022, the first season I was here. And it's an hour-long pregame show. It was I don't really know why that was the one that was submitted, but other than, I don't know if it was because I don't know. But that was the one they picked. I happened to be the one on the road for that game, and it won. And it was the first time that show's ever won an Emmy, so it meant a lot to our producer and our sports director. But yeah, so it was because we put a lot of work into that show. We're the only hour-long pregame show here. We put so much effort into Colts games, so much money, so much time, so much energy. So it was a really gratifying for them, but also for me because I had been here. It was validating for me. Game was in October. I had moved here in July, so it was 4 months of me being here. I had already done work that was good enough to have an Emmy. So that was, again, validating to me because I'd wanted it for so long, for so bad in Chattanooga, not knowing if I'm necessarily good enough, and to win it so quickly, that was really nice. And it was extra sweet for me because I did it at the Tennessee game. And I covered the Titans while I was there, so I was with all my people, all my Nashville people. I was so familiar with the situation of the team and the stadium and Nashville, and so it was kind of like I was winning one when I was in Tennessee, but while I was in Indy. So it was really cool, and I didn't even watch the awards ceremony. I forgot about it.
Oh no!
And I'm sitting at a Alley Cats game, which is the Indy Ultimate Frisbee professional team up at Grand Park. I was sitting there with some friends. And my phone is blowing up, and I'm like, why are people calling me right now? It's like June on a Saturday. Why does anybody need me? I look at my texts, and it's like, congrats, you won. I'm like, won what? And they're like, an Emmy. And I was like, oh, are you serious? What? So I do wish I had kind of gone to the award ceremony.
Yeah.
It was in Cleveland, which is why I didn't go. But it would have been nice to actually be able to pick that up in person. But yeah.
Definitely, but winning overall is awesome.
Yeah, that's so
no
cool.
matter where you are.
And it's something no matter where this career takes me, what happens, no one can take that away from any of us that won it. It wasn't just me; it was the whole team that won. It was probably in spite of me, but it's fine. I still have the trophy, so it doesn't matter.
There you go. You get the trophy.
So yeah, we'll see. We just submitted Emmys for this year, so we'll see how many we can bring home. We might not bring any home, but we'll see what we can do.
For the same thing?
So there's so many different categories. And as a sports team, I think we submitted 8 or 9. So not all of those are going to get nominated. But our high school show has won before, The Zone. Countdown to Kickoff won last year. My boss, AC, has won so many times as a sports anchor category. There's also the sports reporter category, which is the next one that I would like to win because that is all of me. There's no one else in it. Like, that would be you won because you, Angela, are the best in this category. But I don't know. There's guys in Cleveland that you go up against, so it's difficult to, go up against people, and that's a bigger market. There's more teams there, so we'll see. Both me and our weekend sports anchor submitted for that. So there's a joke in the office that what if one of us gets nominated and the other doesn't? And I'm like, that's fine. We'll see.
You're like, it's me.
We'll see what happens. No, but it's just that category is very difficult to win because of how many people submit for it. But there's also like our Indy 500 show. I think we've won for that. It's been nominated so many times. But yeah, I think my boss just loves trophies as much as I do. He might not admit it, but I love trophies. So.
Oh yeah.
Hey, there you go. So is the Emmys like based off of like the Midwest or like all of?
So there's different
America?
regions. Ours is the Central Great Lakes region. So the big markets in it are Indy and Cleveland. And you're not just going up against TV. You're going up against production for the other teams and Bally for the Guardians and the Cavs, Bally for the Pacers. You got the production teams for the Colts and the Browns. So you're going up against really high level professional organizations. It's not just local news TV. But in Chattanooga, it was the Mid-South, which is a really weird region because it's all the way from Memphis, Nashville, Chattanooga, Knoxville, and then in Charlotte and Raleigh.
It really does.
Yeah, it's like this. So, yeah, it's weird. But then Myrtle Beach is in the Southeast region, which is Atlanta. So I don't know how they decide these things, but that's how it works. I think the national ones are like the sports Emmys that you see ESPN win all the time.
Okay.
So those would be like more of the national networks.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that does.
They're different levels. Like, obviously, my trophy might be the same as whatever famous actress has won an Emmy, but it's not the same kind of Emmy. So.
Hey, no one needs to know that. No one needs to know that. You have an Emmy. That's what matters.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
So what advice would you give for future female broadcasters or anybody in the system to get to where you've gotten in not almost like the goal of winning big awards like that, but just in general, what would you give advice to them?
Yeah. I've been asked that question a couple of times recently, and I've realized that I don't have an answer for it. Because I feel like I've kind of just muddled and backed my way into where I am with a lot of God's grace and blessings to get here. But I mean, it's something that professors say all the time. You know, the more marketable you are, the more skills that you have, the better. And unfortunately, even in these higher markets, you're going to have to, these days with the way local news is, you have to be able to run a camera, you have to be able to edit, you have to be able to do everything. It's no longer I can just show up, somebody wrote something for me, and I just make sure my makeup and hair is good. Like, it's no longer like that. So the more skills that you have, the easier it will be to market yourself to employers. Also, be willing to move wherever.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that if you want to stay in Indiana, you can't get a job in Terre Haute or South Bend or Fort Wayne or something. That's totally possible. But you're limiting yourself if you're gonna pigeonhole yourself into Indiana. You limit your opportunities. So be open-minded about moving other places, and understand that you are going to work long hours. You're going to work nights and weekends and holidays. You're not going to be able to take off during football season. You're going to miss weddings and big events, and you're not going to get paid very much. And that is like the harsh reality that I tell every aspiring journalist. And if that doesn't work for you, 100% get out now. Don't waste your time, like 100%. Yeah. Because it is stressful, and you sacrifice a lot to do this job, to be that what, people who are working corporate jobs would love to have these jobs until they realize, what all it entails. But it's a lot of hard work and long hours, but it's fun. And usually you work with great people. For women specifically, I feel like I always get interviewed about, like, what's been your experience being a woman in sports? And like, what have you seen discrepancies with how you're treated or whatever? I always say to people, there is no difference. I have not experienced a difference, which is very, I know women who have. I understand that it still happens, but in my experience, there's so many women in this industry now that it's normal. So don't go into it with a posture of, I'm going to have to, you know, do X, Y, Z. I'm going to have to handle this. I've never experienced anything like that. Maybe like 1 or 2 instances that, but nothing major. The athletes treat you the same. The ones that I've worked with, the coaches do too. You do have to prove yourself. You do have to prove that you know what you're talking about.
Right.
But so do men. Men also have to prove that. So I think it's a little bit of a misconception if people think that it's still, you know, women at a disadvantage. I'm sure there are jerks out there that treat women differently, but I haven't experienced them, and I've been in a lot of places. So, and that's nice.
That's really that's great to hear that it's not happening at all.
Yeah.
Where like everywhere you've been.
Yeah.
And I mean, even All-Star Weekend, like we interviewed a ton of players from different cities, and everybody was very pleasant and nice, and they're just used to, you know, they're used to women. Like there's women in the locker rooms now. Like they're used to that.
That's true.
It's it's just
Right.
a fact of how things are. So
Yeah. It's definitely getting up there and more popular for women, which is cool. Well, to end, we ask everybody this question, and we're just so curious, like, who's your favorite female athlete, and then why?
yeah, I'm glad you prepped me with this question. I still don't know. There's so many great female athletes. I love Tamika Catchings.
Oh, she's awesome.
She was a Lady Vol, and now she played for the Fever, so I keep following her. It's like Peyton. I keep following Peyton too, from Tennessee to Indy. Now I need to go to Denver, I guess, if I'm going to follow Peyton. I really want to follow Eli, but that's a whole nother story. But I think I'm going to say Shawn Johnson, the Olympian.
Yeah.
I love her. I love, she was so fun to watch during her Olympic run, and now I just enjoy, like, she does so much on social media with her family. I enjoy following her, and I really like that she uses her platform to spread the gospel of Jesus without all of her following, and use her fame to be a good example for that as well, and I really respect that. And she was a phenomenal gymnast.
Oh, yeah.
Phenomenal gymnast.
Yeah.
And I love the Olympics, so gymnastics is obviously one of those that I always watch. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Shawn.
That's a good one.
Really good choice.
That is
yeah.
a good
She's
choice.
Well,
amazing.
have you guys ever been asked who your favorite female athletes are?
Yeah, mine was Simone Biles.
Okay.
She's right there.
Right
there.
there,
Yeah. Mine was Brianna
Gymnastics.
Stewart.
Okay, yeah.
Love a good Yukon girl.
Yeah, there you
Love
go.
a good Yukon
I just
girl.
loved how she promoted and like used her own mental health for other girls.
Yes.
That it's your top priority.
Yep.
That's what gets you.
Yeah.
That's what gets you going.
Yeah. Everything with that U.S. gymnastics team, like, they're just
Yeah,
amazing.
it's gonna be
Like,
another
that story
big year,
is,
like for them, because there's a lot of girls coming back.
it's going to be cool. It'll be cool to see.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Of
This has been
course.
really awesome and really informative and just.
I'm sorry if I was boring. I talk
Oh my gosh,
a lot.
no! Oh my gosh, no! This
Not
was
at
perfect.
all.
It was incredible.
Every time I do interviews, I answer the question, and then as soon as I'm done answering it, I'm like, oh, God, that was so long.
No, that was actually really good.
was
No, it
really
was
good.
awesome. It was awesome. Yeah, thank you, though.
Of course. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Bye.